Hello, today I'm going on a date. The guy's name is Jack, and I like him for a long time. Since the first time I saw him on our street with a big box in his hands, even then I was surprised. Well, who moves to live in a small town in such a wilderness? Who is interested? But now I'm glad Jack lives here, and that today I can be alone with him. I have been dreaming about this for a long time. True, Jack himself does not suspect that today he is meeting with me. Why? I'll tell you in a minute, but for now, subscribe and click on the bell. There are many interesting stories ahead. So Jack doesn't know he has a date with me today. He is sure that he is not taking me to the new pizzeria, but his girlfriend. They've been dating for a couple of months now, and they're doing great. But the most interesting thing is that this girl is my sister. And not just a sister, but a twin sister. Her name is Margaret and my name is Mary. And we are unusual twins. Since childhood, my mother raised us as if we were two parts of one whole. No, it's not that we had one wardrobe for two. There's just a very strong bond between us. Margaret and I never hid anything from each other. We even had a spell. All mine is yours, so that none of us will ever feel left out. Margaret was bolder than me. So she first met Jack when he moved to our town. He rode a beautiful shiny motorcycle, and many girls sighed after him. And me too. But Margaret met him. After the dates, she told me what a daredevil Jack was, and how they raced on a motorcycle through the mountains, and how he gently kissed her goodbye. I listened eagerly, absorbing all the details, and soon realized that I myself fell in love with Jack. I didn't say anything to Margaret, but she soon saw through me. We had a treehouse in our garden. There, we often sat up late and chatted. That evening, I stayed at home by myself. Margaret had gone out to hang out with Jack, and I made myself some hot cocoa after I decided to read a little in the treehouse. Suspecting nothing, I quickly climbed the stairs to the top, and suddenly a quiet voice rang out in my ear. "Why are you so long? I'm already waiting." Suddenly, he pulled me sharply to himself and kissed me right on the lips. Jack. I froze in surprise. He thought I was Margaret. The kiss took my breath away. I dreamed about it. And Jack. He was really fun to be with. And he looked at me with such loving eyes. But on the other hand, Margaret could appear at any moment. And then what? Half an hour later, I sent Jack out, and she hurried home. "Well, how? Did you like the way he kisses? Is everything the way you imagined?" Margaret sat on the veranda and smiled mysteriously. I started making excuses, but she stopped me. "Drop it, I'm not mad at you. I set everything up myself." Margaret hugged me tightly, whispering in my ear, "You should have told him straight away that you liked him. All mine is yours, remember?" It turned out that Margaret, cleaning the room, found my diary and read all my secrets there. "Let's not hide anything from each other, sister. You are the most important person for me. I don't feel sorry for you. If you like Jack, he's yours." So, officially it turns out, my sister allowed me to meet with her boyfriend. From that day on, Margaret and I started the game, "Which of us is dating Jack today?" Jack did not suspect anything. And in the evenings, each of us told in detail how we spent time with him. And soon, a new Mur appeared in the city, and everyone was talking about his son, Brian, who opened his coffee shop in the center. Handsome, smart guy, but very secretive. He was the exact opposite of Jack, who by that time was already fed up with me. Recently, I refused to go on dates with him. His impudent disposition began to strain me, but Margaret continued to be with him. I met Brian by accident. After the lessons, I liked to sit somewhere in a cafe and read my favorite book with a cup of fragrant cappuccino. And as soon as a new coffee shop opened, I immediately decided to look into it. Brian managed everything, but sometimes he made coffee for the guests, talked, tried to find out what people like in the coffee shop and what they don't. So we got talking. It turned out that Brian also loves to read, like me. And we sat chatting until the coffee shop closed. It was already dark and Brian insisted on giving me a ride home. As soon as I went up to my room, Margaret immediately attacked me with questions. What a handsome man! Where did you meet? Exchanged contacts. I remembered about our communication with her not to hide anything from each other. That's why I told my sister everything without hiding. He's cool. Comes from a wealthy family. Hook up with him, Mary. The twin winked at me. Yes, the issue of money of our family was painful. My parents had a stable. They took out horses and then sold them. And before the business developed well, but lately everything has been sad. Orders were reduced and no one canceled taxes. The parents got into debt. And Dad somehow even hinted that he was not sure that he could send the two of us to study at the university. It was terrible. Margaret and I felt sorry for our parents, but we didn't know how to help them. Thinking this over, I sat in the coffee shop, stirring hot coffee with a spoon. We haven't seen Brian since the day we met. And I caught myself thinking about him all the time. Hey, Mary. Brian apologized, made excuses. He has a lot to do, the coffee shop takes all the time. But tomorrow, we are going with him to his friend's birthday. It will be fun. And Brian looked at me questioningly. They say, I do not mind. I don't even know, Brian. We just met you. I've always been indecisive, not like Margaret. She would immediately agree without hesitation. Then the waitress called Brian. They brought a new batch of coffee syrups to the coffee shop. He needs to check. And I hurried to the toilet to fix my makeup. Everything happened somehow quickly. Then we met. And then we go to a party together. Hello, little sister. In the toilet, I almost ran into Margaret. What are you doing here? Your Brian so intrigued me. I want to chat with him. What? No. I started arguing. All mine is yours. Forgot? Margaret blocked my way. But you have Jack. And you have. But he's already boring. And here is such an example. I got cold inside. Well, I do not. I had a hard time convincing Margaret that today was not the best time to switch roles. Tomorrow, I promised her that tomorrow she would meet him. When I returned to Brian, I explained that I would not be able to go with him to a friend's birthday. He was upset, but I had no choice. I will not let Margaret get into my relationship with this guy. I like him and I don't want to share Brian with her. What to do next? These thoughts swirled around in my head while I was trying to sleep. I woke up late. It was Saturday. I crawled into the kitchen for coffee. It was quiet. Parents have been working in the stable for a long time. And Margaret? She must have gone somewhere with Jack. Sitting comfortably on the couch, I turned on the TV and began to think. About Brian, Margaret, our stupid agreement. I must have dozed off. I woke up when it was already dark outside, and someone honked in the yard. I jumped up from the couch, looked out the window, and was dumbfounded. Jack's car was parked near our house. But why? Yesterday, I clearly told him that I would not go with him to a friend's birthday party. And then I heard hurried footsteps behind me. Margaret. Bright makeup, loose hair, short skirt. What are you doing? Decided to meet Brian behind my back? I stood in front of Margaret, preventing her from leaving. Sister, we have an agreement with you. I shared Jack with you, right? Not greedy. It's your turn. And she grabbed the doorknob. No, I will not allow this. Your Jack is nothing compared to Brian, local bully. Ah, well. Margaret fumed and rushed at me, but I managed to dodge, and on the way, Margaret was a large curbstone. She looked through it and flew heads over heels, sprawling on the floor in a minute. Wow, Brian stood at the door. Margaret sat on the floor and rubbed her swollen eye. I didn't know what to say. It turns out there are two of you. Brian looked at us as if we were strange animals in a zoo. And which of you do I know? It's me, Brian. It's me. I shouted. And she began to explain to him that we are twins and we are not distinguished. Brian, she's lying. She followed us into the coffee shop. She's ready to do anything to get you, said Margaret's cold voice. For a couple of seconds, the guy looked confusedly at me, then at Margaret. Then he smiled bitterly. I'm not ready to solve this puzzle. First, sort it out amongst yourselves, girls. Bye. And he left. For a couple of seconds, I silently looked at Margaret, who smiled, then grimaced in pain. Then I took ice from the freezer and handed it to my sister. I have to save her eyes. I must help her. After all, my sister is the dearest person in the world to me. But who knows if that's good or bad? What do you think yourself?